We are now on our way to Ponce de Leon Lighthouse after having visited St. Augustine in the morning. We're now heading south to get to Ponce de Leon, so 2 lighthouses in one day factored in on this holiday. Now the first lighthouse, St. Augustine, was I think about 165 feet high. So 2 other lighthouses I've been to in Britain. One I was posted to, which was Bishop Rock, and the other one just visited for the videoing, and that was the Eddystone, or a similar height to St. Augustine, 165-ish feet. But this one, Ponce de Leon, was the highest I've ever been to, 175 feet. So bear that in mind when you hear a retiree from 30 years ago from the lighthouse service huffing and puffing up the tallest lighthouse he's ever been on. Now the one thing I wish I'd done after reviewing this video is spent longer in the shop. It's the best shop I've seen, I think, in a lighthouse. Once again, this was a lighthouse that had those commemorative bricks that you could put your words on and pay for and help fund the lighthouse, and I've placed in the walkway you see us walking over. There'll be details at the end of this video, hopefully, that will show you how to get your own brick if you so wish. One of the things I noticed when I was a lighthouse keeper in Britain, and I'd been posted, say, to the Bishop Rock I mentioned, you did 1 month on, 1 month off, continuously for several years till you were posted somewhere else. You lived in a vertical world, albeit a spiraling vertical world, so you got these wonderful leg muscles, and dare I say it, a lighthouse keeper's bum, but and you could go up and down all day long, no problem. But when you got ashore and you're out with a wife, I noticed I had to keep telling her to slow down for the first couple of days, because it took me 2 or 3 days just to get the strength back in my legs to walk in a straight line again properly, if that makes any sense. The tower is 175 feet high and took 3 years to build. The lighthouse beacon can be seen for 17 to 20 nautical miles. There are 1.25 million bricks in the tower. Thomas O'Hagan, in the left of the picture, principal keeper from 1893 to 1905, stands with his 2 assistants inside the tower. You are now standing on exactly the same historic Italian marble floor. The iron staircase that rises in the background is also still in place. Vibrations from climbing the stairs can damage the cast iron, so visitors are asked to climb slowly and as gently as possible. The men are leaning against the weight well, a standard feature of light towers with stairways built around a central open shaft. Prior to the use of electricity, early beacons with a flashing characteristic had to be rotated by means of descending weights, much like a grandfather clock. The well was used to hold the weights when they reached the bottom. When open, the weight well is about 3 feet deep. Although weights were never used here, the well had the function of providing a safety zone for falling objects like tools. If you look at the floor around the perimeter of the weight well, you will see evidence that not everything that fell landed safely inside the well. The tower has a brick foundation that is 12 feet deep and 45 feet wide. The brick walls are 8 feet thick at the bottom, look at the entrance doorway, and 2 feet thick at the top. You must climb 203 steps to get to the gallery, that's the balcony deck. The iron staircase was built by the Phoenix Iron Company of Philadelphia. This is a working lighthouse. Most aids to navigation are managed by the Coast Guard, but this is a private aid to navigation, and the beacon is kept by the museum staff. The rotating third order Fresnel lens at the top of the tower flashes 6 times in 15 seconds. Death of a keeper. Joseph B. Davis, 1860 to 1919, served here from 1914 to 1916 as second assistant keeper, and he returned in 1918 as first assistant. At 5:30 p.m. Sunday, October the 26th, 1919, while climbing these steps to light the lamp, Davis suddenly suffered heart failure and died. When the lamp did not come on, second assistant keeper Ben Stone came to investigate, found Davis's body and carried him down. Heavy breathing from here on in. An ocean landmark. From this window you can see the Atlantic Ocean. Although this lighthouse was used to mark the local inlet, its primary purpose was to help vessels navigate along the coast. For example, captains sailing south would find their position here and set a course for the Hetzel Shoal Buoy, or buoy as you say in America, which would then guide them around the shoals of Cape Canaveral. Now you're coming up the final part of the spiral staircase and you will enter what they call the watch room, or us in Britain would have called the service room, I guess. Now, back in the day, as I keep saying, before electricity as such came into these lighthouses, the light at the top would have been either oil, kerosene stroke paraffin driven, and it would have been like a mantle or a wick. You'd have that hissing or burning away, and that's the only light source you'd probably have in the watch room, and the keeper would do his watch in this room on his own in the night, maybe a 4-hour shift, something like that. So that's the only time the keeper might have felt a bit lonely, maybe. Probably not, because they are used to it. And that's where you had to do the watch from, because you had to make sure nothing went wrong with your light. Now, when I joined in 74 over in Britain, electricity had started to come into all these lighthouses out to sea when they put engines in them. The engines obviously were to drive the alternators that gave you the electricity in the lighthouses. And then the quietness of the oil lamp and the lens being driven by clockwork clanking round and the weight going down, and you having to wind it every so often, wind it back up again to keep it going. That was all gone when I came in, and everything was bright and lit up in these places. Whereas I was saying in the olden days, you would have been wandering around the lighthouse in more or less semi-darkness with just one of these handheld little lights. Very, well, like a spooky lighthouse film, if you can imagine that. But once electricity came in, that meant the watchroom at the top of the tower was almost a thing of the past. You then had like a wandering watch, and you had to go down the spiral staircases and look after your engines in the engine room. And by engines, you normally had 2, probably 3. You had one on 24/7, and the other 2 were backups that you'd change over fairly regularly, so as one engine didn't do all the work. And you'd have to go around the building checking on this, that and the other. And once you got the engines in, then instead of having something like a fog bell to ring in case of fog, you had a foghorn to look after as well. And now up to the lens, covered in plastic to keep tourists' fingers out, I guess. Now normally, if this lighthouse is still manned by keepers, the curtains would be up during the day, the lens would be stopped, and you'd be working on the lens in the morning, cleaning it. So the lens consists of glass prisms, and every now and then you see these circles in the middle of these prisms. These circles are magnifying lenses that gives the main beam of the lighthouse. These magnifying lenses, obviously, if you stop the lens and have no curtains up, then the magnifying lenses, especially in the Florida sunshine, can definitely work in reverse, and they can melt cables and even start fires. So the only alternative would be no curtains, keep the lens moving, and you only have to worry about turning the light on at night and turning it off in the morning, and that can be done automatically through some sort of sensor. Having said all that about the cleaning the lens, etc., from my personal experience, I was on a lighthouse once where it was my turn to go up and turn the light out in the morning and put the curtains up and give the lens a very good clean. It was quite a tall tower. I made my way up there, I looked out. It was absolute brilliant sunshine, sea for miles, right to the horizon. Beautiful day. I closed the curtains, turned off the light, stopped it turning, put the ladder up and proceeded to give it a good clean with the cloths and bits of water, etc., to get the odd fingerprint off here and there. And about half an hour into cleaning it, I suddenly heard this ship's siren going off. And I thought, grief, why is it doing that? Is it something passing in front of it maybe? And the top of the curtains was a bit saggy, and I looked out and you could see clear blue sky with a few fluffy clouds. Carried on cleaning. 5 minutes later, I heard this siren going again. So I got down off my ladder, opened the curtain properly, pulled it to one side, and lo and behold, clear blue sky in front of me, but down below, right down below, was a sea of fog. It had come in from nowhere. Must have really rushed in, and there was this ship going past, and all I could see was its funnel like a shark going through the sea. And I quickly had to press the button to get our foghorn going and take the curtains down and put the light on again. It was that quick. You've really got to be on the ball as a lighthouse keeper when you're looking after all the boats going past. And as I said, when I first got up there, I could see for miles and not a speck of fog anywhere. So within a half an hour, it was thick as a pig, as they say, and all at sea level, nothing above. Yeah, really weird day. The Lens Exhibit Building. Constructed in 1995, this building houses a collection of lighthouse lenses, including 2 fully restored first-order Fresnel lenses, a rare English-made 3.5 order lens, a 4th order bivalve or clamshell Fresnel lens, 2 fixed 5th order Fresnel lenses, and more. Small navigational aids, modern lighthouse beacons, lighthouse artifacts, and exhibits explain the history and technology of lighthouse illumination, as well as the process of Fresnel lens restoration, are also located within this exhibit space. The magnificent rotating first-order Fresnel lens from the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse is on display here, along with the original fixed-order Fresnel lens that served as the Ponce de Leon Lighthouse's beacon from 1887 until 1933. You will also see a very special 4th order lens made by Chance Brothers and used at Ireland's Spitbank Lighthouse, the last lighthouse seen by passengers aboard the ill-fated Titanic as she sailed out of Cork Harbour and into history. This is the Cape Canaveral lens, and I tried my hardest with emails etc. to try and visit Cape Canaveral to video it on this trip, but to no avail. Since the tragic nastiness, and that's me being very, very polite, of 9/11, because Cape Canaveral is on a military base as such, the only people that can now visit is American citizens, unless I could have found somebody that would have signed me in on the base. So in case you didn't know, Cape Canaveral is on a military base, even though a good portion of it, thousands and thousands of people visit the all the rockets there that are on display. The Cape Kennedy Space Center piece, but Cape Canaveral Lighthouse is across an inlet onto the base proper. Now, back in the day, before 9/11, way back in the 60s, I was in the military in the Royal Navy, and we visited Cape Canaveral on a visit, and I've got a picture of me with Apollo 15 in the background, and quite close. We actually went inside the vehicle assembly building, and we went everywhere, and it was all on the tours. And but of course, since then, since those tragic days in 9/11, everything, the whole world has changed, hasn't it? In any case, if I'd gone to Cape Canaveral and got a visit and made me way up the spiral staircase, I would have only seen some modern LED light anyway. But it was a joy to come here and see what would have been back in the day. Lovely place to visit, well worth it. And you have all these lenses, and then if you can get up the steps, you've then got all the other paraphernalia up there and all the posters explaining lots of things. But if you're disabled, you can come in on this level and see all this and just wallow in the noise of the gentle motors going round and watch the lenses to your heart's content, just going round, and all the sunlight coming in and all the colours of the rainbow in the prisms. Wonderful stuff. Augustin-Jean Fresnel was born in France in 1788. He was frail and plagued by ill health when he was young. Reportedly, he did not speak until he was about 8 years old, and his teachers considered him slow-witted. However, during his secondary schooling, he showed such talent in graphic arts, geometry, and mathematics that he won admission to the famed École Polytechnique. Not suited to the military career that traditionally followed an education there, he completed his studies at the School of Bridges and Highways and became a civil engineer to work on the national roadways. He found the work dull and involved himself in scientific studies, developing new theories concerning optics and light. In 1815, Fresnel submitted a paper which contradicted the well-accepted light theories of Sir Isaac Newton. The scientific community ridiculed him, but Fresnel was able to defend his position by devising an experiment still used by scientists today and referred to as Fresnel's mirrors. In 1821, his impressive theories of optics gained him an appointment as secretary to the Commission for Lighthouses. The following year, he perfected his theories in the development of his new lenticular lens, now known as the Fresnel lens. The first of his lenses, a large first-order lens, was installed in the Cordouan lighthouse in France at the mouth of the Grande River. Fresnel lived long enough to see his remarkable invention installed in many lighthouses, but his health was frail and he began to deteriorate. On July 12, 1827, the father of the modern lighthouse lens died in Paris at the age of 39. U.S. Lighthouse Service Principal Keepers at Ponce Inlet. William R. Rolinski, 1887 to 1893. Thomas Patrick O'Hagan, 1893 to 1905. John Lindquist, 1905 to 1924. Charles L. Sisson, 1924 to 1926. John B. Butler, 1926 to 1937. Edward L. Mayer, 1937 to 1943. Right, the pennant you see on the wall with the silhouette of the lighthouse in it is the USA lighthouse flag. And from the rules and regulations from 1888 it states when this pennant should be flown. Whenever an officer of the lighthouse establishment or a member of the lighthouse board is afloat in a vessel of the lighthouse establishment, the lighthouse flag, brackets pennant, shall be shown at the mainmast head. Light vessels shall display colours and lighthouse flag to all passing vessels of war and vessels of the lighthouse service. Jingles, the lighthouse dog. Pamela Brown and her brother Billy lived at this lighthouse in 1944 and 1945. Their father, William Brown, was in the Coast Guard and he was the assistant lighthouse keeper. Pam and Billy loved dogs. One of their favourite dogs was Jingles. Billy liked to help the Coast Guard men who worked with his father. The men would pay Billy a dime to climb the tower in the evening. Billy's job was to take down the curtains that hung in the lantern room at the very top. One day Billy climbed the tower to do this job. Jingles was with him. When Billy had almost climbed to the top, Jingles jumped out of an open window and onto a concrete ledge. You can see the window in this picture. The ledge is just below the window. Jingles did not have enough room to turn around and come back. The ledge was too narrow. Billy was scared. If Jingles fell, he would be killed. Billy climbed out of the window. Now he was even more scared. His back to the tower. Very carefully he used his knee to push Jingles all the way around the lighthouse. When they got back to the open window, Jingles jumped inside and so did Billy. As an ex-lighthouse keeper who should be used to heights, there is no way that I could have done that, I don't think. So hats off to Billy. Lighthouse kids. Everybody who lived here worked hard. Boys and girls had chores. They had to sweep the floors, rake the yard, care for the family's animals, fish in the river for something to eat, or help their mothers in the house. Sometimes the kids climbed the tower to help their fathers at the top of the lighthouse. The pantry. Each keeper's dwelling had a pantry. This was where the keeper's wife stored her cooking utensils, tins, jars, canned goods, bottles, food items, and cleaning supplies. For her convenience, the pantry was located next to the kitchen. Clothing for keepers. When the lighthouse establishment was founded in 1789, regulations were lax concerning how keepers should dress. The keepers generally wore what they pleased. Regulation uniform buttons came into use in the mid-1800s, but if keepers chose to have uniforms made, the designs were variable. In an effort to further professionalize the service and to maintain discipline and efficiency, uniforms were standardized in 1883. Lighthouse keepers were now required to provide themselves with the uniform prescribed by the United States Lighthouse Establishment. Based on US Navy and Revenue Cutter Service clothing, this uniform had to be worn while on duty. Gladys Mayer Davis Home. Decorated as it might have been in 1890, this is the first assistant keeper's dwelling. The building is named for Mrs. Davis, a lifelong resident of Ponce Inlet, who was born in this building and is the daughter of the last principal keeper of the US Lighthouse Service at the light station. These rooms in this building are viewed through glass only. You can't go into each room. This is done solely to preserve it as is and not get wear and tear with people walking through it, or the nasties that we all get in life that might damage it, even accidentally. Where possible, we've taken pictures from either side of the room to give you a better perspective of what was in that room. The Cuban Raft Exhibit. It is not unusual for Cuban refugee rafts to come ashore near the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse. The rafts in this collection date from 1989 to the present. These fragile vessels were built with whatever materials were available to the refugees who used them to cross more than 90 miles of open sea between Cuba and the Florida Keys.